Stop me if you've heard this one. There's this guy. He's a bricklayer. And he's really good at it. He's a real master of his craft. Because he's precise. Every brick has its place. Anyway, this guy has a daughter, and he's going to teach her to be a bricklayer because, after all a man has is his legacy. So Dad decides to build a barbecue in the backyard. He does the math. He figures out exactly what he needs. And he shows the daughter how to do everything, step by step. And when he finishes, it's a beauty. It's a perfect barbecue, just the way he drew it in the blueprints. Only one problem. There's a brick left over. One single brick. The guy freaks out. He must have done something wrong. He's gonna have to start all over again. So he picks up his sledgehammer to knock the thing to pieces, and suddenly his daughter says, "Daddy, wait, I have an idea." She picks up the orphan brick, and she throws it up into the air as high as she can.
Good morning. How may I help you?
And then... Shit. I messed it up. Okay, forget that joke. Okay. 3 heroes die, and they all show up at the pearly gates. God's there to decide what their eternal fate shall be, heaven or hell.
For episode 1, I focused on the themes of mass and how ambiguous it has become as a tool used for both good and evil to protect themselves from each other. For episode 2, I focused on world building and how the events of the graphic novel set in the 80s influenced the story set in the present. And now we have episode 3, which ties both of these themes together due to revelations and links to the past. At the center of it all is Laurie Blake, a character from the graphic novel who finally made her debut in this sequel, and therefore solidifying this story as the successor of the original. Now, while a familiar character, Laurie's presence proved to be more than for nostalgia, and naturally for how Watchmen has changed. With that said, let's first connect all the dots. The world building of the series continues outside the series in what is known as the Peteypedia files, written by Peter, a character now introduced to us, which fills in a lot of gaps between the original Watchmen and the series. For one, we now have more insight into why the internet doesn't exist. It seems after the appearance of a giant squid, which is believed for the most part by the public to be an alien life form, an interesting theory was formed. It came to be believed that it was our technology that lured the life form to Earth. Afraid of bringing more life forms like the squid to Earth, strict restrictions was made on technology, limiting the use of computers, resulting in no internet being created. This tech phobia caused Asmodeus' businesses to suffer for the rest of the 80s and into the 90s. However, due to genetically engineering food and pet cloning, his companies recovered. Asmodeus also proved to be influential politically. He proved to be a major donor to the Democratic Party in the 80s and 90s, which helped Robert Redford become president in 1992, which is when the two had a falling out. Not surprisingly, the Peteypedia reveals that Rorschach Journal was published, but was for the most part ignored. However, a lot of right-wing groups gravitated towards it, for example, the 7th Cavalry. We also learned that Silk Spectre changed her name to Comedian and continued her superhero career after the events of the original Watchmen. However, things didn't end so well as both her and Owlman, whom she was romantically involved with, was arrested in 1995 due to their vigilante activities, which has long been outlawed. The details haven't been ironed out yet, but since she managed to get herself out of jail and now works as a FBI agent working for the Anti-Vigilante Task Force. Now all this brings us to Laurie Blake, the daughter of two of the original and most prominent heroes in history. That is, the original Silk Spectre and the Comedian. Her link to the most powerful and influential superheroes in the world can't be denied. Yet her own place in history is a little hard to identify. Known to be in the midst of the great inventor known as Owlman, the smartest man in the world and what many consider to be a god, she herself didn't leave such a heavy fingerprint in history. In the Watchmen universe, she is more popular than important when compared to her male counterparts. Even in character development, she's much less interesting than the rest of our flawed heroes. and proved to be most useful in terms of storytelling to move the plot along. In the graphic novel, of all the main characters, she is the only one without her own chapter. She seems to be more important as the girlfriend of Dr. Manhattan than as Silk Spectre, and not much changed when she decides to get a new boyfriend of significantly less status. This brings us to the question of, who exactly is Laurie beyond her connection to these famed superheroes? And the answer to that isn't clear. In the graphic novel, she is known as the daughter of Sally Jupiter. When she grows to age, she takes on the mantle of Silk Spectre, like her mother before her. After the events of the graphic novel, it seems as if she changed her last name to Blake, her father's last name, and take on the mantle of comedian, like her father before her. This in itself is extremely interesting, as we see that even with the mask on, she can't escape her legacy. She never proved to be her own hero, clearly alluding to her identity crisis. This brings us to episode 3 of Watchmen, when we're introduced to Laurie for, guess what, the first time. This isn't the same Laurie from the graphic novel. Yes, she do have a chip on her shoulder. She is haunted by the past. She do take on a lot of her father's qualities now more than ever, but beyond all that, she seemed to be foundly unique, her own person. This in itself make her entry into the series so meaningful. It's all summed up in the joke she tells. To sum it up quickly, she's forgotten, even by God, due to the great deeds of the superheroes whom stand before her. However, one by one they all fall, while she, the forgotten one, brings down even God. This joke has a few meanings, but the one that stands out the most is that even if she's not seen, her presence will now be felt. For a woman to have such a powerful role in Watchmen isn't nostalgia, it's something altogether new. So here, we're not reintroduced to Silk Spectre, or to a superhero in her father's shadow. Instead, we're introduced to a more solid character, Laurie, whose past we're familiar with, but whose true identity we're finally becoming acquainted with.
And so it's been a long day at the pearly gates. All the heroes have gone to hell. His work done, God's packing up to go home. And then he notices someone waiting. But it's not a hero, it's just a woman. Well, where did you come from? Asks God. Oh, I was standing behind those other guys the whole time. You just didn't see me. Did I give you a talent? God asks. Nope. None to speak of, says the woman. God gives her a good long look. I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed. Seriously, this almost never happens. But I don't know who you are. And the woman looks at God, and she quietly says, I'm the little girl who threw the brick in the air. Then a sound from above, something falling. The brick. God looks up, but it's too late. He never saw it coming. It hits him so hard, his brains shoot out his nose. Game over. He's dead. And where does God go when he dies? He goes to hell. Roll on snare drum. Curtains. Good joke. Here, let me give you my card. My pager's on there, so please feel free to give me a buzz.
Anti-Vigilante Task Force.
You know how you can tell the difference between a masked cop and a vigilante?
No.
Me neither.